Hi, everybody. This is Mark Smolowitz chiming in here from San Francisco. Happy to be sharing with you our new online short, which is called In Retrospect, a Heroine. I am the proud filmmaker in residence here at the JFI, and during the first 6 months of my residency, I developed and created this new short film, which is actually a part of a larger feature documentary endeavor that I'm making called The Lonely Child. And The Lonely Child is a film that contemplates the unexpected footprint of a little-known Yiddish lullaby that was written inside the Vilna Ghetto during 1943 and the Holocaust. And my partner on the film is a wonderful friend and a collaborator named Alex Wall. She's the writer and producer, I'm the director and producer, and we sort of work hand in hand on this endeavor. And what's very special is that this is inspired by her family story. So this lullaby is actually about her mother and her grandmother. And it was written by quite a famous poet and partisan named Shmerka Kazerginsky. Shmerka knew her grandmother in Vilna during the years of the Holocaust. There's a lot of really interesting, rich, kind of lesser-known historical detail that is sort of embedded in this narrative that we're exploring now in the film. Of course, all these people are deceased, and so it's all by way of memory and by way of what we've been told or what we can read. But really, it's about this song and the power that one song can have 75 years later. Initially, we were giving the song to new, younger musicians to kind of reinterpret. Alex was having some incredible things happen in her life where the song was reemerging. People were finding her because they had a connection to the song. Some of them were musicians, some of them were lay people who just sung it and it was important to them as a lullaby. But it was all pretty magical, kind of unexpected stuff, and kind of keeps you, thinking about, sort of the connection that we have to this, time in history that was 75 years ago. But what's interesting about this new piece is that this is a piece that is very different from an earlier short that we did, which introduced the project, which really showed that the film was about new, young musicians. This short is about Alex's grandmother. It introduces her, it contemplates her role in resistance, it lets you know that, that she's a focus. And we actually decided that we wanted to make her a focus. I was realizing late last year that the film needed to have that anchor. As we had the kind of Me Too meltdown, and there was just so much sense of women not being seen, women not being recognized. And I realized that in our movie, I was partnering with a wonderfully talented woman in Alex, and this film had sort of a trajectory where it was her grandmother, her mother, and her, and I really don't want to lose sight of that lineage and celebrate who her grandmother was and what her contributions were. So when you watch the piece, it's an introduction to her, and of course there'll be much more to come in the feature documentary down the road, but you get to meet her grandmother, and all of us, I think, feel so close to our grandmothers that I'm sure you'll be quite moved and quite touched by this piece. It was wonderful to make it. A real shout out to my editor, Michelle McCarrigan, who's super talented, and of course to the Jewish Film Institute for supporting us, and to all the wonderful people in our communities who have been helping make this film possible. We can't do it without you. Okay, thanks.
She hates to be called a hero or a role model or anything like that, but she is one to all of us. I mean, I think that's obvious in the family.
My grandmother was in the Vilna Ghetto.
She had given away my mother to be raised by her nanny, who had taken her to be baptized and was raising her Catholic.
My nanny knew my mother's working hours, so she would wheel me by so my mother could look outside of the window to see me. Until June of 1941. Somebody saw and recognized both Victor and me and called the Gestapo. When my nanny was called in for questioning, she knew that she would have to leave. Victor took me to see my mother, and my mother during her lunch hour came out, and my mother somehow was able to get a flower. And so she brought me a flower, and I turned to my nanny and I said, "Look what a nice lady, she brought me a flower." That was the last time that I saw my mother.
My grandmother was selected with several other people to work in the YIVO, which was the Yiddish Institute. The Nazis were going to make this museum of an extinct race.
The YIVO was full of books. The whole Vilna, they would bring the books from all the libraries. They brought the books from all museums. Anything. And it was, of course, just on the floor and in every room. And they needed somebody should make order.
And so while they were unsupervised, they would hide a lot of these documents. They would smuggle some of them back into the ghetto.
She wanted something to be saved of her childhood, of the life that she knew. And it was like her war effort.
One of the men in this group of people was named Shmerka Katraginsky, and he is the author of the song. Katraginsky and my grandmother, we believe, had a relationship during this time. My grandmother had already been widowed, and I believe they fell in love under these circumstances. So this is a man that could have been my grandfather. She could have married him, but she didn't. And the reason why is because the man who did become my grandfather was coming around a lot and became smitten, absolutely smitten, not with my grandmother, but with my mother. Because he had lost a wife and a son, and my mother was only a few weeks older than his son would have been. And my grandmother could see that he was going to be the better father, and so she chose to marry him.